today's recipe is air fryer chocolate brownies, and these are absolutely delicious. Over here on the hob, I've got some water that I'm just warming. And then sitting over the top of that, I've got 100 grams of unsalted butter and 100 grams of dark chocolate. So we're just going to melt those together. I'm going to be using my deep Ninja tin, and as you can see, I've just greased that with a little bit of butter. You can line it. The non-stick on this is pretty incredible. I've never had an issue with it. That is going to go on the rack and be lowered in once we've got our brownie mixture. This is starting to get warm, so that's great. Over here, I've got my other ingredients. So I've got 50 grams of plain flour, 25 grams of a good dark cocoa. Then you're going to want around 100 to 150 grams. I've gone with 150, making it super chocolatey. This is milk chocolate. You can add in white chocolate, or a mixture is really nice. I thought I'd bought them and I hadn't. I must have used them for something else. So that was a little bit annoying today, but never mind. You can definitely do half and half. And I think that's probably the best, to be honest. If you just put some white chocolate in it as well, it's really good. So that is my chocolate chips and my chocolate chunks. And then in here, I've got my light brown sugar, which is 150 grams. So we're all weighed out and more or less ready to go. The last ingredients we're going to need is 2 eggs. So let's get the eggs. Great. Just going to wait for this and then we can get mixing up. So once your butter and your chocolate is melted, add that to your bowl that you're going to use to mix all your ingredients together. And you want to do that because this bowl's cold, so it's obviously going to cool it down that little bit quicker as well, which is going to help. And I don't like to add my eggs in straight away because you will end up with scrambled eggs. So I just mix that around a little bit more and just allow that to cool off just ever so slightly. So the first thing I add is my sugar. And that is going to literally melt in because that's still warm. Look at that. Just dissolves in there perfectly. Then I'm going to use this bowl to crack my eggs. And then second one. Great, eggs. Now let's put those in. Give them a good beating into that mixture. It smells incredible, by the way. Such rich chocolate flavours and smells. Oh, so good. So now in with the 50 grams of plain flour, 25 grams of cocoa. And let's just fold that in. This is a really simple recipe. And as you know, that's how I like it. We don't want to make our lives difficult, but we want to create really nice, delicious food. Last thing that goes in is my chocolate chunks or chocolate chips. And just fold those through. And then I can scrape in the brownie mixture. Let's get that in. And then just spread that out. Now let's lower that inside the air fryer. I haven't preheated this or done anything, by the way. Turn the temperature down. I'm looking for 160. So it's a fairly low temperature. And these are going to need around 15 minutes. I like to check them at around 14, but I'm going to set it for 15 because that's roughly how long these have taken before. When we've cooked things in the silicone molds, you'll notice it has taken a lot longer. With these brownies, the way that I do these is use the metal tin because it conducts the heat so much better, takes less time to cook. But with these, they also won't look completely baked when they come out. We'll need to put them in the fridge for a few hours to set. So I'm making these at lunchtime. I'm then going to put them in the fridge and they will set ready for dinner later or a treat. Okay, the time is up. Let's open up and have a look. This looks really, really good. So it's going to have a firm top to it, but I know that it's going to be fairly gooey-ish still inside, which obviously you do want a gooey brownie. This is the reason that we then cool this in the fridge. So let's take my tea towel and just pick that up. So all I'm going to do now is leave this to cool, literally like this, in the tin, so don't remove it. And then once this is cooled to room temperature, I'll pop it in the fridge for a few hours and then it will be ready to serve. Here we go. This is the brownie. Look at that. How oozy and delicious that is. Oh, look at it, that side. It's got a really nice texture to it because you've got some firmer pieces, you've got a nice crispy sort of top to that, and then that oozing middle. Absolutely delicious. I do have to confess though, you do need to line the tin. This was actually quite difficult to get out of the tin. So definitely line it and then you can lift it straight out and you can slice it. To start making these white chocolate air fryer blondies, we want some butter. And in my bowl here, we've got 100 grams and that is unsalted. And I've got my scales below. And now we just need to measure out our light brown sugar. So we're going to add 150 grams of the light brown sugar into the butter. And then we're going to melt this in the microwave because it's just the quickest, easiest and most convenient way to do it. If you don't have a microwave, then just melt this on the hob in a saucepan, or alternatively, you can do that in the bottom of the Ninja on sear and saute if you wish to. So take about a minute to get to this stage here where the sugar is just dissolving into that warm butter. Look at that. Absolutely lovely. Just make sure it's not too hot when you add your eggs into it because you don't want your eggs to scramble. So in here, I've got 1 egg yolk and we're just going to crack a whole egg into there. Whoa, whoops, managed to get some on the worktop. Never mind, always clumsy. Now we add that in and just keep mixing it. There you go. So 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. So we just put the scales back on underneath so we can measure out the plain flour. I've got Henry helping me today, which is great. So he's going to do the flour. How much flour, Henry, are we putting in?
150 grams.
150 grams. Okay.
Yeah.
We should have really used a bigger dish for this, but let's kind of work with it, shall we, now we've started? There you go. Give that a good mix in. We're using a baking tin today and that is 7 inches across. It's quite important to not use too big a dish or pot because if you do, the blondies are going to be a lot thinner and they're going to cook at a different rate. Whereas if you use one that is more or less the same size as mine, you get the right thickness and the cook time will work for you perfectly. So that is all lined. We just buttered that, used some parchment paper. So we can get the mixture into there. We've just got to do the last part, which is adding the white chocolate chips. So you're going to need 150 grams of white chocolate chips. So we're just measuring those out. We have had a little taste. These white chocolate chips are so nice. These ones are the Marks and Spencer's white chocolate chunks. So they're not really chips, they're chunks, these ones. And they taste so good. There you go. These are the ones that we got. Now you just need to mix this together and then we can get that in the baking tin. Now I can just scrape it out of our mixing bowl and into our tin ready to bake. You can see what I mean with regards to the amount of mixture, that you don't want to use too wide a dish or baking tin. And then once you've got that on in the tin, you just want to spread that out across the bottom. So this fits perfectly in my air fryer because I've got the Ninja Foodi, which is circular. If you've got a different air fryer and say you've got a basket, then just use the shape of dish that will fit into yours. It doesn't really matter what shape and size these are. They're going to taste exactly the same. So mine just sits on the rack here, which then inserts into my Foodi, ready for air frying. And get the lid down. We want to turn and reduce the heat, so turn that down to 160. And then cook time, I've found these take around 15 minutes. Oh, look at that. All you're going to want to do is remove this now, leave it to cool on the side. So let's do that. So there you go. This is what it's going to look like. So we've got a solid top. As you can see, when you touch it, it almost cracks. Just let that now cool at room temperature. That's going to continue to cook for a little while in there because obviously it's still very warm. So if you don't feel that it's cooked enough, then you can go slightly longer. It's going to depend on your air fryer, but anything probably 14 to 16 minutes. I generally do mine for 15 and find it works perfectly. And then what I do, like if you've seen my brownie recipe, is that we then put that into the fridge for around 4 or 5 hours, something along those lines, maybe slightly less you might get away with, and then you can portion it up. And this is going to give you a really good amount of portions. I would say at least 8 in here. So here are the white chocolate blondies. Look at those, so indulgent. Got a gorgeous crispy top to them. And look at all of that chocolate inside. They look absolutely delicious. All you're going to need to make my crunchy fudge is 5 ingredients. A tin of sweetened condensed milk, some vanilla extract, unsalted butter, a slab of chocolate. So we need 400 grams. Up to you what chocolate you choose. My son absolutely loves Galaxy. But of course, really using the crunchy, it does lend itself to some dairy milk. But that's your choice. And then a pack of 4 crunchies. So it's pretty simple and easy. And we're going to be slow cooking this. So start off by getting in your condensed milk. And you're going to want to really scrape out the tin to get all of that lovely goodness in there. So I'm just opening that up and we're going to tip that in. There you go. If you've got any slightly bigger pieces that didn't break up very well, you can just get your hands in and break those up. It's just going to help it to melt that little bit quicker. I'm adding in a teaspoon of vanilla, 15 grams of unsalted butter. And the last thing to add in is my crunchies. Now you can open these and chop them up and put them in. What I have done is I have left them in the packet and I've just given them a bit of a bash with a rolling pin. And that's broken them up nicely into fine pieces. So 3 crunchies going in. This is going to taste absolutely incredible. So I'm holding back 1 crunchy, and that's going to be for some decoration on the top. So it's always nice to do that. There you go. It's got all that lovely honeycomb in there. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so select slow cook. We want to do this on a high temperature. And I'm going to do this for 45 minutes. I don't know if you know this about the Ninja Foodi, but the minimum you can go down to, I believe, is 4 hours, which is annoying because then obviously you haven't got the timer on here and you have to kind of set a different timer. So what I do is I press start and then you can just reduce this down once it's actually going. So just keep hold of that, 45. Press start again and you've actually now got your 45 minutes. So leave that for 15 minutes, then we're going to stir it, another 15 minutes, stir it, another 15 minutes, and then we should be done. So I just thought I'd show you what it will look like so you can see now that you're able to start stirring this together. So you want to give that a good mix. That chocolate is melting nicely. Oh, smells absolutely beautiful. This is going to be so naughty, but oh so nice. So good mix like that. Make sure you're sort of scraping the bottom and then we can continue for another 15 minutes. Fudge has now had half an hour. So we just got 1 more 15-minute session to go and then it will have had the full 45. And all we're doing really is just making sure that this is melting together really nicely. And it's nice making it on the slow cook function because it's just really gentle. You're not going to spoil the chocolate and it's just really melting that together really, really nicely. Once you've got your chocolate fudge in your mould, we then add our topping. And I've done exactly the same with the crunchy as I did before. And I'm just going to sprinkle that over like that. And it looks nice with that golden honeycomb on the top. So into the fridge, and I'll show you once that is set. The crunchy fudge has set, and this is what it's going to look like when you cut it up into squares, or roughly squares, rectangles, it doesn't really matter. But look at that, it's really beautiful with that nice bit of crunchy just going over the top of them. I really hope you've enjoyed the recipe. Don't forget to hit the like button if you did, and subscribe to the channel for more recipes. Let's make BISCOFF mini cakes. These are absolutely gorgeous. My son loves BISCOFF. I think most people do, really. So we're going to start by weighing out our ingredients. Going to just put this onto my scales here. I'm using some stork, which is great for cakes, but you can use a butter, whatever you've got is good. And we want to start by adding in 100 grams into here. Into there, you want to add your sugar. I'm using caster sugar, so we want another 100 grams, so equal quantities here. Into the creamed butter and sugar, we add 2 eggs, around 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I've got this really thick vanilla paste here. I actually got this from Mauritius. It is gorgeous. It's got so much flavour. And then I want to add 2 tablespoons of BISCOFF spread. So that is exactly what you're looking at. It doesn't really matter if you go with the smooth or the crunchy. I had this one. So let's get that mixed together. I've just scraped down the sides, and you can see we've got this really nice loose batter here. We need to add in our flour and our baking powder next. So back on the scales, just to weigh that in, and 100 grams of your self-raising flour and a teaspoon of baking powder. You can either do this by hand, or you can put this back on your mixer. Doesn't take a lot, to be honest, now just to mix this together. And it smells great because you've got that BISCOFF spread in there. So I've greased this silicone mould. I don't really know if I need to, but you know when you think to yourself, if I don't, am I going to regret it? Will they not come out very well? And I'll be really cross with myself. So anyway, I've done that. So I've just used a little bit more of the stalk and gone around the edges just to hopefully mean that these come out nice and easily. I found that the best thing to do is to allow them to cool completely in the silicone before you try to remove them. Probably seems fairly obvious, but I just thought I'd mention that. You think if you were making these or any cakes in the oven, you'd be preheating your oven, wouldn't you? And I'd probably end up putting that on first before I start baking. So that's probably going to be on for like 10-15 minutes, which, you know, is a lot of wasted energy in comparison to using the Ninja, isn't it? So I don't worry about preheating it whatsoever. And I think these are going to take anything between 20 to 25. My chocolate chip cupcakes, I believe they took 25 in the end to be fully cooked through. Do have to remember that with silicone, it doesn't conduct the heat in the same way that metal does. So do find they take a little bit longer, but nothing that is an issue. So we're just going to sit this on top of the rack. It's exactly how I did it before. Let's lower that in. Get the lid down on the Ninja and some power. Now, I personally like to put these on to bake. I think it works really well. I like my temperature on 180, and I'm going to go with 20, and I do think we're going to need to increase it to 25, but that way it just reminds me to keep an eye on them. So 20 to start with, see how they're doing, and probably an extra 5. So they had 25 minutes in the end, which is what we thought they would need. And they are so soft and spongy and almost sticky. Oh my God, they literally smell amazing. So what I've done is they would have come out that way up. So that is the dipped bottom that you get in the silicone mold. So what I have done is I've just literally just taken the very tops off, just so they sit really nicely Of course, you don't have to do this. I didn't do it with my other cupcakes. Because I wanted to decorate these, I just felt that this was a better way of doing it. So what I'm going to do now is grab some Biscoff, and we're going to melt a little bit of this to make a drizzle on the top. Let's give that a little stir. That is perfect. Look at that. Just go for it, I think. Just pour a little bit on the top and just let it drip down the sides. Gorgeous. Now on those ones that have got the spread, you can just sprinkle your lovely crumbed biscuits over the top. It doesn't matter how fine or how chunky it is, it really doesn't matter. There we go. So you may think they look a little bit messy, but I think they look really good. I think they look absolutely delicious. And of course, if you want to make yours a little bit neater, then you can do that. But I'm happy with these. Can you see there the texture of that cake? How absolutely moist they are. Anybody that loves a bit of Kinder chocolate, then this is going to be for you, because inside of these brownies are going to be these Kinder Buenos, and we're going to bake them like that. These are so, so good, and we can bake them in our Ninja Foodies. So to start with, let's get my bowl here on my scales. This is my bowl that goes with my food mixer. Going to start off with caster sugar and melted butter. So caster sugar, we want 250 grams. Into that, I add melted butter, and that is 170 grams. And now I'm going to just give this a mix. Let's get that under there. We've got the whisk attachment on, and let's whisk that together. Okay, that's nice and light in colour now, and that has really been whisked together well, so they're nicely combined. Into there, we want to mix in 3 large eggs. There's my eggs going in, and mix again. I'm just melting some dark chocolate that we're going to need to put into here, 250 grams of dark chocolate. And we also want some sort of chocolate spread, Nutella, whatever you want to choose. And let me just get my scales on, and then let's weigh this into the mixture. So we want 150 grams. So it's a fair amount of chocolate spread for this to make this taste so incredible. It's very naughty but nice, this one. Just trying to get that spot on if I can. One more little bit. There we are. 150 grams that is. Just mixing through the chocolate spread, and then in a moment we can mix through our melted chocolate as well. Now I have got the melted chocolate. Whoa, look at this. Really rich and indulgent, this one. 250 grams of dark chocolate, that is. Let's combine that. Okay, last few ingredients now to go in. I'm going to sift in my plain flour, and we want 100 grams of this. Okay, so let's sift that in. Now I've got some cocoa powder, and we want 30 grams sifted into here. And then the last thing to balance that chocolate is a little bit of salt. And I'm just going to fold in those dry ingredients into all of that wet mixture that we've got there. So we've got around half the mixture here on the bottom. I'm just going to push that right to the edges. Okay, so we've got a nice layer there. And now we go in with our Kinder Bueno layer. To be honest, it doesn't really matter how you do this. It's a circular tin. These are never going to fit absolutely perfectly. So let's get that top layer of brownie mixture now over the top of this. So just sort of dollop it on, and then we can spread it out in a moment. Right, that is all my brownie mixture now used. And now just spread that out with your spatula right to those edges. So let's get the lid down onto bake. I'm going to lower the temperature. I want it at 170. And I'm going to keep an eye on these, as I always do, because the Ninja can be a little bit unpredictable with baking. I do find that. I'm going to set it for 25 and see how we get on. 25 minutes is up. I did actually cover this with foil because when you bake things in the Ninja and they're a little bit higher, even on a lower temperature, they just colour way too much. So let's look where we are at. That is definitely not quite done. We do have a bit of a crust on the top. I think let's go another 5 minutes and we'll see where we're at. So it's had 25. Let's go with another 5. So I ended up giving this 35 minutes. I mean, there is a lot of mixture in there. And remember, the Ninja is always a little bit different when you bake in your oven. So it's got that kind of crispy top that you get with a brownie, but I can feel that it is fairly soft underneath still. Now, the key thing with these is to take this out, let it cool completely, put it in the fridge. So you can go in the fridge overnight, or if not, 3-4 hours is going to be good. And do that before you cut it up. These taste absolutely incredible. That dark chocolate brownie with that Bueno filling. Absolutely indulgent and so, so good. Let me know if you make these, if you enjoy them. Don't forget to give me a like as well on the video. I would much appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new here as well. These are pretty mega.